Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Board Game Specialist. I am Melanie,
I'm Carla.
and today we are doing episode 22, which is our worker placement games. Now, before we get into that, Carla, what have you played this past week?
I played Honey Buzz. A friend bought it while we were at Gobfest, at one of those, that store that was down the street. It was a great store.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm trying to think of the name. Do you remember the name of it?
Oh, geez.
It was a really good store.
No, it was like a native name, wasn't it? Or
Yes, it was, but they were awesome. It was a good store.
we'll have to
So
look
this
it up
is,
and put it in the comments.
yeah, for sure. This was an economic game, but it's so cute and
Oh,
adorable. You probably wouldn't have thought that just by the cover of it. So your bees, you have these little bees, and you have this little hive that you're building, and it's little hexagons, but they're
right.
double-sided. So there's two that are attached together, and you build this hive, and what you want to do is like enclose like a circle so that you have all these polyominoes connected, and then once you have completed it, then you fill in that circle with something that you can either like a pollen or some honey, and there's all different types of honey. And it's really neat because then once you get all these different types of honey, then you can fulfill some contracts, or you could just sell them straight at the market. And the market, like as soon as you sell one, it'll go down, so it doesn't ever go back up.
Oh,
It's
oh,
just it just will go down. And once all the honey gets to the bottom, I think maybe three out of the four, then that could end the game. Or if the pollen as well. So you could kind of go different routes where you're just gonna just sell at the market, or you're gonna go for contracts, because when you get a contract, then you also get a bonus action. And it's like a worker placement as well, because you're taking your bees and you're putting them on a spot, and depending which spot you put on, that's a different hexagon that you're going to get, and they will all have different actions on them. So you can either produce, which if you don't have any honey on there right now, you can produce around this one little piece, or you can pull the honey. I forget what it's called, the action, but you can pull the honey from this spot where you have another little game that you have to play, where you have to move around another little bee, and maybe it's pollinate. I'm not sure what they call it, but so then that's another one. You can reproduce bees. That's one action spot. You can take one of those tiles and put it around your hive, and then if you get to activate that one, you'll get to add another bee. You can just go straight to the market with one. It's like all different kinds of actions, but really cute and adorable. You have these little wooden bees. You have one little fuzzy bee that does the pollinating on the board, and it's just really cute. The money's little like wooden leaves. Yeah, it's really neat game. That's one of the first ones I played. I also got to crypto to the table. I played this once at that Calgary Tabletop Day,
right,
and I found this used, so I bought it because I just loved it. It's kind of got a spin on Codenames. So I played
right.
it with my husband and my son and his girlfriend, and it's really neat because you have this little stand in front of you, each side. Like we have one in front of us, and then the other team will have one, and you stick these cards in, and then they get decoded, so that you can't really like if you look at the card, you can't read it until you stick it in this decoder, right? So you'll have four words,
Right.
and they'll have four words on their side. And what you're trying to eventually do is guess their words. But each round, what you're trying to do is decode their words. And what that means is, so you have four words, and you're going to each pick a code out, like just a card, and it'll say like 3241 or something. So then I look at this, but my team can't see it. And so then I'm going to put words down for them to guess that exact order. So, say I had the word cat, dog, mouse. You wouldn't have all these animals, but cat, dog, mouse, let's say snake. And I had to decode that. So, like, say I had number three, and what I say, mouse was three. I'd have to use a word to
Yeah.
describe that. And then, so for all those, they'll do that on the other side. And then you will write these words down, and the other person will be like, okay, well, that's got to be this and this and that. So they'll decode it, but you don't want it to be too obvious, because if the other person can intercept your code, which they would never be able to do on the first turn because they would have
Right.
no idea, right? But after the second round and so on, they'll have those words because you will have to give them what your code was. So they'll be able to write at the bottom, okay, this word was here, this word was here. And then once they see the second one, they could be like, okay, like if you had cheese under mouse, and then say next time you put trap, which you probably wouldn't do because it would be too obvious. They'd be like, okay, that word might be mouse, you know.
Right.
So if they intercept your code, they get this little white chip, and the other thing you can do is if your side can't get your code, you'll get this black chip. And if you ever get 2 white chips, you win the game, or if you ever get 2 black chips, you lose the game. So it could end before you actually guess the words of the other player. But it's really neat. It was hard to describe, and even when I played the first round, I'm like, I don't see how this is going to work at all. But it's totally
Right.
fun and cool.
Because to
Another-
look at it, it's hard to figure out how that game is going to play. It's
I
kinda
know.
Like, okay, I have no idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's really neat. And I might not have described it well, but it's something you got to try. And it's can be played like you just need 2 teams, right? So you could have 10 on each team and come up with all these cool words because you want to be, you want your team to totally guess it, but you don't want to be obvious that the other people will.
Right.
I also played Istanbul Dice. Now, I think I've talked about this one before. Played it a few times, and it is John's favorite game right now. He hasn't been able to lose.
Oh,
It's such
that
a
must be nice.
yeah, it's such a quick little Euro game, but it's just a smaller version of the big Istanbul, but it's just strictly with dice. Still has the same feel of racing to get the rubies, and you get goods and money and all these things. It's so fun, and literally 20 minutes a game. We've played so much of this lately. I just love it. And then I also got Viticulture World to the table. So I ordered the big wine
Oh.
crate, and I literally ordered it one day, and I think it was less than a week. It was a pre-order. The day that it opened, and they said they were going to fulfill it at the end of June. Well, it came less than a week later. I don't know how they got that shipped out so fast, but it was awesome. So I have this big box. It's a wine crate, and it fits everything viticulture in it now, and it just looks awesome. I have it on my shelf in my TV room as a decor,
Right.
but it's really neat. So it's what also came with it was the reason I ordered was the cooperative version called Viticulture World, and this one you're working together to fulfill a goal, which is you have to have so much influence by the end of the game, and you each have to have at least 25 points, which in a normal game, once you reach 25 points, that triggers the end game. And I thought, we played this little beginner scenario that he sent with the box that if you buy the wine crate, you get it for free. And so I thought, should we even try this easy version? Like, we probably should just go into, well, no, we lost by 1 point.
Oh,
1
nice.
point. And I must have sat there for 10 minutes figuring out, okay, we must have missed points somewhere. But no, it's challenging, but it's really fun because there's some different play to it. Then there's you can get these little, these discs that can go on worker placement spots to make them stronger. And you have to use those. You have to get them in order to be able to have a double action or something. But it was awesome. I loved it. And one little solo game I got to the table, I played, I've played a bunch, but this is one that kind of stood out. It's hardback. So it's kind of a sequel to paperback.
Right.
It has a little bit of difference. It's not, you're not racing to get those point cards, victory point cards. You actually are just going on a point track. And in the solo version, you're racing this person. Now I can't remember her name, and it's very hard, the solo version, to get past her because she just gains points left and right each round, and you're struggling to kind of get points in there. But it's neat because it has different genres of writers, of writing. There's romance and then horror and stuff. And if you have
fun.
some cards that are similar, what let you play each round, then they will combo off each other. So it's kind of neat that way. But what about you? What have you been playing?
Well, I've actually soloed a game.
Oh,
Right.
I'm
And
rubbing
actually,
off on you.
well, and I don't solo games often because for me, when I play board games, it's about the social experience. That's what I like. I like to
Hmm.
get together with people. But I've gotten so many games lately, and I was like, okay, I've got to get some of these learned just so I know
Yeah,
how to play them.
it's a good
So
way to learn them.
I've for sure. So what I did is I played as if I was two players,
Yeah.
but I just played both sides. And
Hmm.
the first one I played was Whistle Stop.
Oh yeah, what'd you think?
Because I bought that one. What was it at the Tabletop YYC? That one
Oh yeah, that's
day
right.
game day.
Yeah.
I bought that one there and I hadn't played it yet. So it's super cool. Like you set up this board because it's modular. Like you just have these pieces that do like the four corners,
Hmm.
and then you put these little tiles along the middle that's going to represent like a station you can go and visit, and then you have like the gold ones at the very far left. And you have each player has their own little colored train, and you have coal and you have whistles, and you will kind of start. It's interesting because you start by placing your train at different spot on the far right, and then on your turn you can place a tile and you kind of follow the map that you create. And when you spend the coal, that moves your train forward, but the coal can only move a train forward. It can't go backwards. Like it goes towards the left. You can't go towards the right. But if you have a whistle, that allows you to go back as well. And you're going around kind of following these map you're creating, and you'll collect different resources. And it's just different colored cubes depending on the little dots that your trains will land on. And then when you arrive at a station, if you have the necessary resource to like fulfill that order there, then you'll get either coal or whistles, or you get different things that you would collect there. Now, if your train ever reaches all the way far right, left, I mean, and you kind of get one of these goal space, well, that is fulfilled, and you put like your train then gets off the map completely, and you fill in one of the kind of bigger reward areas, and you kind of put your
Hmm.
train on one of that you want to collect, and you would get more stuff.
Yeah.
And there's some rare goods, there's some more common goods, and but it's so interesting because you're building this network and going forward, trying to hit the stuff that you need before you hit the station. Because there's you kind of, I think you lose points if you land on the station and you don't have the resource you need to pay it.
Oh
So
yeah.
moving all this, like it's just the network you're building. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
I won because
Oh
I
yeah.
was
Yeah.
playing me against me.
That's funny.
but but it was neat. Like it's honestly, it's not a very hard or difficult game to learn and play. It's just like it's all about trying to build that network and move which train which, because it doesn't matter which train collects the resources. It goes just all goes in the same pool, right? So
Yeah.
it was really neat. So that was the first one I played, Whistle Stop. And then my friend came over, and me and her, while the guys were tinkering on the bikes in the garage, me and her ended up playing Imhotep. And this one is so cool. So it's an Egyptian themed game, but each player gets their own set of bricks, basically. And, so there's white, there's black, there's brown, and there's like a gray one or something. But these are huge cubes. Like, if you look at a cube like from the pandemic game, well, this cube is at least 5 times as big as that.
Hmm.
Like, it's a nice, chunky cube you're playing with. And each player have their own set of cubes. And what you'll do is on your turn, you can bring cube onto your little board because those are the cubes you have access to place.
Hmm.
Or you can place a cube from your little board onto one of the ships. And each game, you're going to flip over a card and it's going to tell you which boats are available. And the boats have different amount of space on there. Either you'll have 5, 4, 3, 2, or just a 1. And then you'll put your blocks on there in any order that you want, because there's benefit to being in a certain position depending on what's going on. So you kind of fill in these boat, but one of the action that you can do, each boat have like a minimum requirement, and when there's that many stones on it, you can send the boat at one of the location. And there's, I think, 5 or 6 different locations that you can send the boat to. So you can go and build the pyramid. And if you send the boat there, the boat, like the stones will come out in order, depending on where they go, because you do the nine, like the 3 by 3 for the base, and then a 2 by 2 on top of that, and then a one on top. And you're building this pyramid. And then depending on where the stone gets placed, it's worth different points. So it could be like, oh, okay, well, if you get in the middle position there, that one's worth way more points than the rest. So I'm going to go before she puts the stone in front of me and take that spot, because right now it works it out that I'm getting there and she only gets like a 1-pointer and I get a 4-pointer. And so that's one other thing you can do. Another thing that you can do is go to the market to collect some cards that's going to give you different things. You can do either like end game points, or that it allows you to kind of manipulate the order on the boat, or different things like that, right? Or there's one that you can kind of collect. I can't remember if it's a map or something, but the more you collect, the more points it's going to be worth. There's another one where you're building like a wall, and but like what you're doing with that one is like if you can create clusters of your color, it's worth more points. And then it was funny because Brandy ended up sending the boat there, blocking off my cluster.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like, oh, now I can't add any more points to it, because the bigger the cluster you create, the bigger the point you get. And then there's another one that you have the temple and you put the things in it was so interesting. It's a very, very simple game. And you just kind of place these stones and then send the boats out. And we were playing a little mean, and I would send things over as soon as I could, because it would kind of mess with her. And she won by like 1 or 2 points.
Oh, really?
Like it was so cool though. It was really neat. I had played this game once before, like years and years later. So it was really interesting to play it again. It's such a simple game, but it's really satisfying. And that was Imhotep. So that's all the games really I had played that week.
Nice.
Yeah, it was super cool. So we'll go into our top 9 worker placement games.
Yes.
I had quite a bit in this list. Worker placement is a
Me
very
too.
popular
Yeah.
mechanism.
It is too.
So let's start with you then, Carla. What was your number 9?
Well, I just have a couple honorable mentions. Just because this is probably my favorite genre, I'd say. Well, I shouldn't say that because I have so many, but this is definitely up there. So a couple that I didn't put on my list, but they were very close. One was Five Tribes, and that one is a very unique type of worker placement because you take a handful of meeples from the board and then you're going to move them Mancala style and drop one off as you move around the board. And then when you end on one, you take the meeples of the same color, all the meeples of the same color, and you get to do that action. And they all have different actions, each meeple. So one can be like you're literally attacking, or one is just collecting these little collection tiles that will give you points at the end depending how you collect them, or they'll give you a helper, which can help you get better tiles or whatnot. They can also help you build like a little, what's it called? Not a castle, but it's like an arch on there, or you can put a camel out. All different types of things each worker does, but it's such a tactical game because you can't plan anything, because as soon as one person moves on their turn, the whole board changes basically.
It really does,
So,
yeah.
unless you've planned something and no one's touched that area, then you can. But it's really neat. There's a bidding order at the beginning because you have 2 turns and you could go the first 2 depending if you've paid money to go first, or you could just, I don't care about going first, I'll just bid 0, because every point is money, and whatever you bid is a point basically, so you don't want to give away too many. And it's just really neat. There's all different it's a very unique game that you have to check out. It'll be on another list of mine, I'm sure. But another one is The Gallerist. This is a Vital Lacerda game, and it's a very unique worker placement as well because it has a following action, and there's only actually 4 spots to go on the board. You're running an art gallery and you're trying to promote artists and have the best art and match all these different contracts and stuff. But what you'll do is you'll place a worker, and then at the end of the round, before you leave, or if someone else has a worker there, they can follow that action. They have to place some influence for it, but they will get to do that exact action. and there's a couple different things you can do at each spot. But it's neat because then when you leave, you can leave a worker there, like a little, it's like a smaller, like a, they call it an assistant. You can leave there, and then if someone goes there another time, you can follow them. And it's
Oh,
neat
nice.
how you use your influence because it kind of goes in blocks of 5, like it goes up to, I don't know what it goes up to, but if you're say at like the 4, you'd have to go all the way down to 0. But if you were at 6, you'd only go back 1. So it's like totally worth it to spend 1 to do one whole extra action because there's very limited actions in the game. It's very pretty. It's probably it's probably my favorite Lacerda game. And then another one which is really unique is Scythia or Raiders of the North Sea, which are basically the same game. And that's where you're placing a worker and taking one off, which I love. And, they're like Viking themed games, but so neat. They have all different areas that you can go to like gain money, provisions, all kinds of things. And then you also can use them to raid. So you can go to a spot and raid, and you have to have all this strength built up from your team. You build up a team, and depending what you have for a team, you will get certain points, and you may get some wounds, and then you might have to kill off some people too. But the worker placement part of it is unique, and I think he was the first one to do that, Shem Phillips, where you place a worker and then you take one off of another spot, so you actually get 2 actions in your turn. But I just love that one. I'm waiting for I don't know if you've ever played Russian Railroads, but
I've seen it played, but you haven't played it
it's
myself.
yeah, it's a really good one too. I'm waiting for the Ultimate Railroads to come to Canada. They're still just shipping the version from Germany, which is very expensive right now. So once the actual English version comes, I think it should come down a bit in price. But that was an awesome game. But to start with my number 9, it is also a Shem Phillips game. It's Architects of the West Kingdom. So it was made by Shem Phillips and S.J. McDonald in 2018. Now this also uses it uses a different form of worker placement where you start with this whole pile of workers, and you get to place one at a time. So if I place one to go to a spot, and what you're doing is you're collecting a bunch of resources, and you want to use these resources to either build the cathedral or build some buildings for yourself, which will give you end game points, or they might give you some quick bonuses right away. You also need money to hire more assistants, which will give you like little player powers throughout the game. So you kind of need to balance that way. But what you do is you place a worker and you'll get something there. And then next time you can place another worker at that spot and it'll double what you get. Then you can place another one. And you can keep doing that and just, have 5 workers at a spot and you get 5 things. But the kicker is the other players can send you to jail. So they can go to a spot and gather all your workers on their little player board. And then they can use another action to actually send you to jail, and they collect money for you. And it's not that big of a deal because you can get them out of jail fairly easy, or you could also get them off their player mat using an action. But it just makes it kind of neat because obviously if you have 6, 7 workers on a spot, you're going to be the one targeted because they're going to get $7 to send you to jail, right? It's such a neat game. I had bought the big player mat when the last expansion came out on Kickstarter. So I've got both of the expansions, which they add quite a bit to the game. It's quite neat because they add buildings, and they have this little princess and profiteer that will go in different areas. And when you go there, you get different things, or you get hindered different ways. You can build wonders, which you can stick on a spot, and it gives you much more power in that one spot to gather resources or whatnot. And it's just such a neat game. I had kind of overlooked this one because I had always preferred the next game in his line. And I thought, this one might kind of seem too easy, but I went back to it and I actually love it. It's an awesome game. It's a really good beginner game. The base game would be like a good game to introduce worker placement. I think it would be good because the base is fairly straightforward, and just collecting your resources, but the fact that you have all these workers, like some games you're stuck with one or two worker and you have to figure stuff out, but having this whole pile is really neat. That's my number 9, Architects of the West Kingdom.
Yes, that's a good one. I'll have a few honorable mention as well then for myself. In my number 10 position, just missed the list, was Lost Ruins of Arnak, which this one just is like a mingle of so many mechanism. Worker placement is one of them. Deck building's one of them. It's really interesting game, and it's one that it's like there's so many different things you can kind of concentrate on, but you have these, you can open up these new areas, you can kind of battle these monsters that it's going to give you points as well. You have this knowledge track you can go up. It's such a neat, interesting game. And that one, yeah, just missed my list. And then I also had number 11 position, Near and Far. And Near and Far is cool. It's like an adventure game. Now, it plays in 2 rounds. Like you're in this village kind of prepping to go on the adventure, basically. And that portion is worker placement. But when you go onto the map and you kind of go around and you visit these different locations trying to collect these different things, that portion is kind of no longer worker placement at that point. And that's where like the adventure comes along, because you'll go into a spot and then you pull out the book and it comes up with a story and be like, oh, you come across this stone person crying by the river because somebody stole her rock baby, and do you help her or do you refer her to somebody? And then there's always like a decision that you need to make, and then but each decision require you to have like so much like I don't know if it's like in the dice roll, but you need to acquire a certain level to be able to do it successfully. So be like, well, I really wanted to do that, but I don't think I'm going to be able to reach that level. So I'm going to do the other action, so it's kind of interesting. And then depending on if you're successful, what you get. If you're not quite successful, what you're getting. And it's such an interesting game. So those are going to be my 2 honorable mention. But in number 9 position, I have Century: A New World. This one was published in 2019. It's created by Emerson Masucci, and it was published by Plan B Games. And I really like the Century series. Century: New World is the latest one that came in. Each one has kind of like a different mechanism. Like the first Century Spice Road was like a deck building game, and then you have the Century Eastern Wonders, which is more like an area control, which is probably my favorite out of the 3. And then you have a Century: A New World. Yeah, I know I don't like area control, but I really like that one. Go figure that one out. But
Only
Century:
10
New
games
World
so
is
far.
neat, and what's
I'm the
so with
same,
this
too.
one is you have so many, right? It's so weird. But yeah, so in this one you have all these locations you can go to, but as you play you'll unlock more. And you'll be like, okay, well, I want to go here. Now, if you're there, I can still go there, but I need to send more workers. And then you're doing these different action to trade your goods, and it's so neat. The only thing with this one is like the boards are paper thin. It shocked me. It's
yeah.
like, why didn't you actually get like a cardboard? And then the meeples that you're playing with are tiny.
They're so
I've
small.
never seen such a small meeple.
Almost
But
need
the
tweezers to move
gameplay
them around.
itself, almost. It's like, see that little blurt there? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a meeple. Like, it was like when I first opened the game, like those were the 2 things that just kind of popped out at me. It's like, why? But I mean, like you because you're putting multiple, I guess it does get cluttered for it. Like if they were too big, I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, they want them to fit on
But
that little player board, I think. Just like the cubes used
right,
to. I think they want them to. I
yeah,
don't know.
exactly. Yeah, I don't know. And then you can like because this is a trilogy, but you can play all of these games combined together, and I haven't done that yet. So that could be where combining the game kind of plays into the size of these meeple, maybe. But yeah, no, this one is super cool. And then yeah, like you got the different areas you can go. Some will be more expensive. You have to send more workers. And then yeah, if somebody does that, it's like, darn it, I wanted to do that. Now I'd have to send more people there. And then one of the action is bringing all your people back as well, which is really nice when somebody does that before you go, because now the board is like, okay, great, things aren't as expensive to do. And it's just such a neat game. So that's my number 9, Century: A New World.
Nice. That's my favorite of the series, actually, that one. And I've combined that with the first one, and that's probably the best way I like to play it, is the first and the third combined. Awesome. So my number 8 is Paladins of the West Kingdom. So this is another Shem Phillips game and S.J. McDonald, and this one was made a year later in 2019. Now, I like this one better just because you have a player board and you already have some buildings on this board, not built, but what you do with your workers is at the beginning of the round you choose a card. There's some cards out that will have different colored workers on them, and you'll choose which card you're going to take. So you might start with I think it's 5 or 6 workers, but you are also going to choose a paladin, which is, you have this deck of cards. Each person has this deck, and you'll shuffle it and you'll pick 3 cards and you'll look at them and you'll choose one of the cards. One you'll put back face down on top of the deck, and one you'll put right on the bottom of the deck. So you'll eventually get to see these again, but you kind of plan out, because they each have a player power as well that you'll get to use throughout the round. But they'll give you also a couple meeples that you'll get to, like workers, that you'll get to add to your round. And so you'll have these workers, and you're gonna you place them on your board. So it's kind of neat because you have all these worker placement spots that you'll place them, and they'll do different things. Like one is you can go and actually build this green building. I can't remember the name, but it will actually be placed on one of your worker placement spots to make it like cheaper for the rest of the game. Because if you cover up one of the people that you need to put there, you only have to put 2 instead of 3 every time you want to go to that spot. And there's different spots you can go to building these other buildings, which will let you place on a communal board in the middle. That'll give you bonuses. Or you can build up your wall, which will also give you points at the end of the game and different bonuses. You're moving up these different tracks that will help give you strength for different things that you need to place your workers. So in order to place them, sometimes you need to have built up your strength on another one. So they're very combo-tastic in this one, and you do have to kind of think it through, because you can't just go somewhere if you don't have the strength, and which a paladin can add strength per round too. So you really have to think, okay, I want to do this round. I'm not going to have to pay provisions or money, so I'm going to use this one and go there to build up my black track so that I can go to this one another time, like next round. And it's really a neat game. I played it first on the cruise. This couple taught us, and it was just wowed me. I was like, they just destroyed us. Me and a friend played with them, but the first time you play, you have no idea what's going on, really. You have to have a game in order to kind of figure it out. But once you get in there, it's very puzzly. Like it's very solitaire. Like, I mean, other than the communal board where you're kind of fighting for spots, you really don't affect each other. But there's just all different kinds of ways to score points. You can convert people, you can attack people, you can just use the townsfolk for like just a little bonus, then you get rid of them. Like, there's just so many things you can do in this game. I just love it. I think that's my favorite of the West series so far. And that's Paladins of the West Kingdom, my number 8.
Nice. I've played that one just the one time. My one thing will be is, don't play this one on a round table, because it's such a long, skinny board that, like, the round table made things so awkward. And we're like, can't remember how many players, but we barely fit.
And I don't know you'd want to play that at a multiple player count. It's a really good 2-player game, but it could be a long game with lots of players. And just to sit at the ends wouldn't be as easy to see that whole long board. Like, sitting across from someone, it's just perfect. But, yeah.
Wonderful. So that was your number 8. My number 8 is Creature Comforts. We just played this one for the first time at Gobfest, and then, like, pretty much all of us went out and bought a copy. And I really enjoyed this game, and I'm a little bit on the fence with the downtime still. But this one it looks gorgeous, and all the pieces and the way things are organized in that box is amazing. And it's really neat with the worker placement portion, because it's a worker placement, but it's also a dice placement. Like it's a combination of the two. So the way that it works is everybody has their own two personal dice, and then four kind of community dice. And first you'll roll your personal dice, and so you kind of have say, well, I've got these numbers, and each location that you can go to will require dice. And it could be like, well, if you have a 1 to 2 and you go here, then you can activate this spot. Or it could be like any number will go here. Or it could be like if you have a combination of two dice that is less than 5, then you can activate this location or whatever. So you have partial information with your two dice. Then you have your workers and you decide where you want to place them. So based on that part information you have, you'll kind of place your workers, and we all do this at the same time. And what's one thing that's neat about this, and this I think is more geared towards family gameplay, you're not blocking each other, which is something that happens a lot in worker placement. Everybody has access to every location, even if somebody went there. So you place your workers, then once that's placed, you'll roll the other 4 dice and then see what you can activate. So it could be that you place the workers like, great, I want to do this action. I'll need to roll another 1, see if that happened, and it didn't. So then you got your worker there, but you won't be able to activate it. But it's neat as well as you can activate where you have your worker as many times as you want, really, as long as you have the dice to spend there. So, okay, well, I can't activate that, so I'll just go and activate this location 3 times and do this or whatever. And this is one of those where you're collecting the different resources to be able to spend them to get your comfort cards that's going to give you points. And some comfort cards are going to combo on each other. And then you can go and buy these other tiles, and some of them will give you kind of buildings that other people could utilize as well, which would give you a bit of an kind of extra resource, or it'll give you abilities that you can do while you're playing. Super, super cute. I really enjoy this game. The only thing, as I mentioned, is it just, while you're doing, each player's doing their turn, kind of activating all their workers and assigning the dice, and then the next person goes, it has a bit of downtime during that time. So at a higher player count, I find it might be too much. But it's still just such a neat game, though, that it's, obviously I bought it and it made my list, so. Yeah. That's my number 8, Creature Comfort. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned that, but it was published in 2022, so it's a brand new game created by Roberta Taylor, and it's a KTBG game.
Right, and she's kind of local to us. She's in Edmonton, the designer, which is quite neat, which is not too far from us. Yeah. Good choice. My number 7 is Targi. This was made by Andreas Stager in 2012. This is a very unique one. It's a 2-player game. And what you have is this grid of cards. The outside border is all the worker placement spots. And then in the inside, you either have a resource or you have a Targi card, which is what you're going to collect and make a grid of yourself. And there's all different types, like kind of suits that you can collect. And what you want to do is you either want to have all the same in a row or all completely different in order to get better points at the end of the game. And you have a row, I think it's a 4x4, I believe. I'm forgetting, but pretty sure it's a 4x4. But what you do is you have these 3 targias, I think they're called, which is like meeples. And so on your turn, you're going to place 1 on the border, and there's always this robber, I think, that is placed there where you can't go to this one spot, and it moves around the board, and it'll kind of end the game if it gets all the way around, and then whoever has the most points. But you could end the game before then if you have your grid completely filled. So you'll place a worker down and then on a spot, and then the other player will place 1, but they can't ever place it right across from you. So you can kind of block them out that way a bit. But then they'll place a worker, and then you will place 1, and so you have 3. And once you have all your workers out, then you look at where they connect, and you're going to place this little, not a cube, but a little cylinder. So if you do it correctly, well, I mean not correctly, but smartly, you will have 2 more, you'll get to put out both your cylinders because you'll have 2 different connections, right? Sometimes I end up putting them 1 across from each other and then 1 intersecting, and I only get to put 1 down, but I really need that spot. So then you'll get to do those actions. So you'll do that, and then like on your turn, you'll get to take all those off, and you'll get all those actions on the outside. and you'll also get the actions that you've intersected. And you can do them in any order, and most of them are like you'll either get resources or money. Money's like the coins are very, very hard to get, so you're always fighting for that coin in the middle, which is very rare. But there's other ways you can trade as well. You can trade a bunch of resources for coins because a lot of the Targia cards need coins, and if you don't have them, you can't take them. So you'll build these cards and gain all these resources, and you can only have a limited amount of resources. So if you build them up too much, you just have to get rid of them at the end of the round. And sometimes you'll have your little pawns on two different Targia cards, and you don't have anything enough to fulfill both of them. So one can just go in your hand. You can only have one card in your hand, basically. And then there's another spot you can go to on another round, which you can fill that one as well and then place it. It's a really, really neat game. Like it's kind of chess-like because you are blocking them out. You know what they need, so you're like, no, you're not getting that card. But sometimes you will think you're blocking them, but then there's also a spot that you can go to, and if it's blocked when it comes to your turn, you get to move one of your other pawns to that spot. So you can kind of block, but if they get to that spot, well, then they can get it. Or if you try to block the coin from each of you, someone can get it that way. Possibly they would have to give up another one of their spots that they already had. But it's so fun. I play this a lot on Board Game Arena too. It's just a thinky little 2-player game, but one of my favorite 2-player games. That's Targi, my number 7.
Yeah, that one is so unique. It's such an interesting
It is. Yeah.
worker placement mechanism because it's not just like it's creating that link and then you're activating the tile you go on, but then also where you can. It's so interesting. So interesting. I like this one. This one just missed my list as well. Perfect. So that was your number 7. Now my number 7 is our first crossover. And that's Architect of the West Kingdom.
Nice.
This one is so cool with how you don't bring your workers back and you just kind of keep adding, and then the more you have, the more they're worth, and then sending them to other people's worker to jail to get the money. And then sometimes it'd be like, okay, I've got too much here and I need to kind of concentrate on something else. Like somebody send my people to jail. Like, so you kind of, it's such an interesting progression of how the worker placement thing goes. And because then sometimes be like, okay, like I'm down to only a few. I need them to come back. And bringing them back is not like an action that is, so it's interesting. I really enjoy that.
There is one spot you can go to that you can draw your workers from one area back, but you can't draw them all back from the board. So unless you have, 5 or 6.
So like the management of where you have your workers and where you send them is kind of a big part of this game, and it's so interesting. So so that was my number 7, Architect of the West Kingdom.
Yeah, I love that game. Good one. My number 6 is Istanbul by Rudiger Dorn, made in 2014. Now this one I just finally got played. I've had it for a little while, but had bought it after I had the dice game, which usually happens. I will buy one of the bigger game or the smaller game, and then I always want to get the opposite as well. Now this one is, like I had said, it's a race to get 6 rubies, and that's the scoring. There's no victory points. You don't have to add up anything. It's just figure out how I can get 6 rubies faster than everybody else. Now you have all these cards on the board, these like cardboard locations, and depending with just the base game, I think it's a 4x4 grid. And with expansions, it gets bigger, and I think it goes up to a 5x5, which is really neat. And so what you do is you have this one worker, and then under it you have all these assistants. Or on top, no, under it, yeah. And so you move it around. You can move it 1 or 2 spots, and then you drop off an assistant. So, and then you do that action, and then you move around, and you keep dropping these assistants. And then you can go back to them and collect the assistant. Because if you're ever alone without assistance, you can't actually do the action. You have to have assistants to help you. You must be like a privileged, I don't know, royalty or something that you can't do any work yourself. But I don't know what to do. So it's really neat because you are trying to collect resources, obviously, that you can trade in, or you're trying to get money somehow. There's different spots that will give you, because you have this little wagon, I think it's called, and you have only like 3 spots for each resource, but if you build more, add more onto your wagon, then you can fill up your wagon a lot more. So you need to get those. And if you fill it up completely, that gives you 1 ruby. So there's all these different ways to get rubies, by collecting a bunch of resources and going to spots and spending them, or getting all this money, or just different there's like a place you can go and get bonus cards, and those will give you things, or also just like player power throughout the game that can really help you. There's just so many different ways to get rubies, and just to figure out, okay, what's the quickest way? Can I go here? And then there's also these little other workers on there that if you go there, you can get a little bonus from them, but you have to pay. You might have to, like, maybe you really want money. Well, you can pay resources to get money, and then you've got that extra to go over here to get a ruby. I didn't think it would be, I thought it was too light before I ever heard about it. And I also have Yokohama, which is, people say that it's a better version of Istanbul. It has a similarity, but I don't find them very similar at all. You're not right there. You're literally having to fill contracts and, have victory points, whereas this one's literally just a race to rubies. No adding of points or anything. It's just, as soon as someone has 6, it triggers the end, and other people can catch up. They get 1 more turn, but if they haven't, well, you've won the game. And this was funny because we played it. It was me, Cherry, and Ashley, and I was, I had 5 rubies, and I'm like, oh yeah, 2 moves, I've got this game. I was sitting back, so smug. Yeah, this is in the bag. And Ashley goes and gets her 6th ruby, which I had no idea she was even close to getting, and I was just like, oh my god, I totally thought I had that one. She just snuck in there and got it. But yeah,
Nice.
It's a really fun game. Istanbul, my number 6.
Nice. So my number 6 is our second crossover,
Ooh.
and that's Raiders of the North Sea, published in 2015 by Garfield Games, and it's a Sean Phillips and S.J. McDonald game. This one is so cool. This is the first game I've played that I've come across that put a worker, pick up a worker.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, like the thing with the worker placement is having your spot blocked can be like, oh, jeez, I really needed to do that. And what's neat with this is, I was going to put a worker there, but now there's already a worker there. You can still do the action. You could draw the worker, but now you got to figure out, okay, well, where am I going to put my worker now? Like, you got to, it changes your plan on the fly all the time, right? It's like, oh, why did you have to go there? It's like, okay. And then you have these different colored workers, and different spots will either give you different things depending on what color worker you send there, or if you're going to be like, hey, well, I want to go there, but I need to have a gray worker. I wanted to do this, but that's going to give me a black worker, so I wasn't really hoping to do this. I guess I'll have to delay this by 1 turn or change your plan. Like, it has some very interesting decisions. And then the worry that you build up these different things to kind of get more points is interesting. And then the metal coins. Oh,
Yes.
they're so beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember when I opened this game, because I bought this second hand, but it was still in shrink. And then I'm opening it. It's like, oh, wow. Oh, this looks great. And I was like, oh, metal coins. Like, I didn't realize it came with them. So it was so exciting. Great game. That's my number 6, Raiders of the North Sea.
Awesome. Yeah, I love this one. My number 5 is Agricola/Caverna by Uwe Rosenberg.
Right, yeah.
Agricola was made in 2007, and Caverna was made in 2013. So 6 years apart. Different games, but very similar. Now this, I think, put worker placement on the map. Pretty sure Agricola might have been one of the first ones that became very popular anyway. Mm-hmm. It's a very it's a strict game. Like, it's not easy, I would say, because you only start with 2 workers, and you're trying to build up your farm and build fences for your animals so that they can breed, build crops so that they can grow, because as soon as you plant a crop, so say if you had wheat, you'll put a wheat down, and then you get to add 2, and then each round you get to take 1 off. I find that just so cool. Just planting and your crops grow. It's such a neat game. Caverna as well. Like I actually had Caverna first because I liked it. People had said it's a little bit easier, more forgiving to get food because you have to feed your workers, which is the very strict part of it. And if you don't, you get these like bagging negative points, which can really hurt you at the end of the game. But the thing about Caverna is, so you build on one side, you're building your farm, and then the other side is your cave, and that's where you can build your dwellings, and you can also mine for like rubies. You can build all these different things, and so you have two exact sides, like they're equal sides, but you want to try to cover both sides because they're negative points if you don't cover something. And so then I played that for years, and I love that game. And then I kind of looked into Agricola, and I thought, I want to see, because it has card play in it. So it has the worker placement as well. Like you have all these spots to go to collect things and build things, but you also have these cards that can give you abilities or give you better ovens in order to like make bread or cook more animals or whatnot. Such a good. They're both such good games. Still can't decide which one I like better, but they're very very similar. And just the farming is such a cool theme, I think, for a board game. I would love to introduce this to people. Only Agricola is much harder to have food at the end of the harvest because it's not at the end of each round, but at the beginning, I think it's every 3 rounds you have a harvest, and then it gets shorter and shorter, and you have to have the food. Or you can always just use animals. You can cook them, basically, for food. But so neat. Such neat games. Agricola, Caverna, my number 5.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've played Agricola, and I've played Agricola All Creatures Big and Small.
Yeah,
And my kids are reluctant gamers. They'll play games. Honestly, they enjoy it. They say they don't, but they're not one to just, okay, let's play games. And I've played this one with Jerome, the Agricola one, and my kids are farm kids. They grew up on the farm, so that themed was so interested to him, and it was so neat at how you build everything. Like, he loved it. So that's cool. And that was your number 5, right?
Yeah.
So my number 5 is Keyflower. Keyflower is published in 2012. It was published by R&D Games, and it's created by Juliette Breeze, Joe Breeze, and Gemma Tegelier. And this one is such a neat game. Now, I've heard some people say, like, they won't play this game, and they get so mad playing this game. And there's an aspect to it that I could see that for sure. But what's happening with this one? What's really neat is you're bidding on these different tiles. And you have workers, but you have different colored workers. And like the side of the tile that is facing you, that's where you would play your worker to show you're the one bidding on this one. So maybe I put a blue worker as like, hey, I'm bidding on this tile to add that to my village, so I'm putting a blue worker. Now, a person could come along and outbid me, but because I put the blue worker, now they have to place blue workers on this tile, and they could send 2 blue workers to outbid me. Now, I would get my blue worker back, and I could assign him somewhere else. Or maybe I could send 2 blue workers and outbid him, and but the 3 is kind of like the most you could bid on a tile. And so you're doing that, bidding on the tile, and then somebody could come along and take their blue worker and put it on the tile just to activate the ability that the tile does. Like, okay, well, while you guys fight on who's going to own this, I'm just going to do the action. And you could do that and then kind of do the action that is on the tile. And then you'll be adding these tiles into your village, and then one of the things you can do when you're placing your workers kind of going forward once you build your village is actually putting your workers on your village to activate these different tiles on your village. But you could also activate tiles on the other people's village by putting workers on their village and all that stuff. And the thing is, if you win a tile in the bidding that has a worker on it, that worker gets added to your worker pool for the next round. If somebody places a worker on your own village, well, that worker goes in your worker pool for the next round, so you get more workers that way as well. So you could be like, hey, I'm going to activate this tile because I want to do that action, which could be frustrating. It's like, oh, I had plans for that. Now, you could still activate that ability if you wanted to, but now they've assigned a color to it, and you have to spend an extra worker. So maybe I wanted to put a yellow worker, but they've put a blue worker. If I want to do that action now, I've got to send 2 blue workers to do it. And that's where some people get frustrated because you're building your village. You just got to keep the mindset the village is not yours, it's open to everybody. So, because you're building these things and be like, great, I'm going to collect this, then I'm going to use this to move it here, then I'll be able to upgrade this tile, and that's going to give me more points. And then you have like all this plan that you've built up in your head, and somebody comes and uses the tile before you got to and wrecks everything. So that's where this game can build some frustration. Also, this one can play long, and then because you're looking and you're planning on what you're going to do, and you're looking and you're planning on what you're going to do, and you're waiting for the person to do their turn, and you're looking, and then all of a sudden it's been your turn for a while and you didn't notice. So, oh shoot, like, so that will happen a lot. And then AP happens in this one because there's just so much to consider. So AP can slow this game down quite a bit. So that'd be one of the two complaints I've heard about it. It can play long with AP and people taking a long time to take their turn, or people taking your tiles. That can kind of create conflict, I guess. But oh my God, I love this game. It's so good. It is so good. And the bidding mechanism is so interesting. I really like it. So that's my number 5 at Keyflower.
I really want to play this game. We have to play this at Malcon.
Yeah, I think it's packed. So.
Good. Perfect. All right. Good choice. My number 4 is Orleans by Rainer Stockhauser, made in 2014. Now this one, it's also a bag builder, but what you're pulling out of the bag is your workers that you're going to place on your board. And they're all different workers. You start with, I think, 5 or 6 workers. And so they'll all start at the bottom of your board that you'll get to place. But then the next round, after you have hired more, then they will all go in your bag, and you will just randomly pick one out and line them up in the bottom. And you'll only have a certain amount. You'll have some left in your bag. But you can go to a spot that will let you add more spots to have more workers that you can pull out. And it's such a neat game because you place these workers and you have to usually have 3 at one spot in order to do an action or to hire another person. But if you build this technology tile, you can put it down. Just kind of like the green building in Paladins, which it'll make everything cheaper and for the rest of the game because it's stuck there then. So you always have to start it on a farmer spot. And then after that, you can put them on different spots. But it's so neat because what you're doing is you're like recruiting followers and putting them to work. Basically, you collect citizens, which give you points at the end of the game. They give you a multiplier for depending how many building or trading stations you've built, which there's a whole map as well that you can move your guy around and collect resources and build trading stations. You can also hire monks. I don't know if it's hiring monks or you have monks in your pocket kind of thing, and they are wild workers, so they can usually go anywhere to a spot if you're stuck somewhere where you're missing something. You're moving up different tracks as well that will give you little bonuses like some money and some more citizens. It's such a neat game. I just love this. It's old, like 2014, but I had got this for Christmas. Yeah, I had asked for Christmas, and I was so happy with this game. I'm waiting for these. I didn't get the deluxe because they don't sell the deluxe version anymore, but I'm waiting for Board Game Geek to get the upgraded chips back in stock.
They're beautiful.
Because I still have just the cardboard, and I was tempted to get the coin holders, but they said they're coming back in stock like June, July, so I'm just waiting. There's ridiculous expensive, but after playing Wonderland's War and pulling out these awesome poker chips, like you can't do anything else but that. So I can't wait for those to come out, but that's my number 4, Orleans.
Yeah, we played this one at FallCon with the deluxe version.
Oh, yeah.
And my friend Greg had the base version. He's like, I can't go back to this. I
Yeah,
gotta
no.
buy the deluxe. So we ended
Cardboard?
up buying the deluxe. He sold the base version to me, so I have the base version. But yeah, those components, they're something else.
Well,
So,
and
yeah,
I have
could
the
see why.
upgraded resources now because I've bought tons
Oh,
of the
nice.
top shelf ones, but I just need the chips.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
So that was your number 4. My number 4 is Lord of Waterdeep. This one was published in 2012. It's created by Peter Lee and Rodney Thompson, and it's published by Wizards of the Coast. This is my gateway game. When my brother got me into the hobby and he gifted me King of Tokyo, when he came over for my birthday to give me my gift, he had brought this one and Dominion. And we played Lord of Waterdeep, and it was so satisfying in collecting all these tiles to create your little mission cards that you have, to get these points, to kind of go around and place your workers on these different things that you can do. And this is one that I still, to this day, really enjoy. It's just so satisfying as you're collecting all these things and you're placing your workers to get okay, well, I really need some black, so I'll put my worker here, and then I'll give me some black cubes, and then I'll go here and I'll buy this building, which will give me the ability to, every time somebody uses it, it'll give me stuff, and then you're kind of, it's so satisfying, the resource management of it, the worker placement of it, and then it's so neat. I really enjoy Lord of Waterdeep. Now, a friend of mine says they play this one where, because you can go to like the main, I guess, market area to collect cards that you're going to add to complete, and they play it that if you do not complete them, it's negative points.
Oh.
So it kind of adds an element where you don't take on more than what you got, because there's some like, oh wow, this one will give you 20 points. It takes a lot of cubes, but I'll take it, see if I can get it done. But it, like the way he's playing, you don't go for those unless you think you can really do them, because then that'd be negative 20 points. I kind of want to try with that house rule. I just think it'd be so interesting. I haven't tried it yet, but I really enjoy this game. This is my number 4, Lord of Waterdeep.
Nice. This is another one I've never played, but always hear good things about. Yeah.
Malcolm will have to.
Yes. All right. My number 3 is kind of a crossover. It was in your honorable mention. It's Lost Ruins of Arnak. This is by Elwyn and Min, made in 2020. And yes, it's just a portion of the game, the worker placement, but I love this game so much. It had to be on this list because it's part of the mechanism. The worker placement part of it it's such a neat thing too, because you have to play, you can't just put a worker down. You have to have the movement. So you have to either have a boot, a wagon, a boat, or an airplane. And they kind of are in a hierarchy order. Like an airplane can be used for anything, and the boat and the wagon can be used for a boot. So you kind of have to figure out, and I always forget, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to go here and here. Oh, I need the cards. I want the cards though, because they also have abilities and give you like resources. So it's such a toss up in your brain. Like, what do I do? Which card am I going to give up to go? But I really have to go to this spot. I have to go explore over here, because who knows what it'll give me, because you don't even know what it's going to give you other than the little bonus chip, right? But you're hoping to get like some arrowheads or rubies. I don't know if they're called rubies, but to get on the knowledge track to move up it. But you're not 100% sure what you're getting. And then you got to fight the guardian there too. So then that flips up and you're like, oh, I don't have any of that stuff. Now I got to go get that stuff. But it's such a fun game. So I think it's very innovative, this one as well, because of the tear between the knowledge track and the worker placement, and then also the cards on the top, because you can also, buy these cards, or you can use your compasses to get these artifacts, which you can also do right away, and then they go back in your deck and you can use them again. You just have to pay with the what are those called, the little pallets. What are they called?
Oh, the like tablets?
Tablets, yeah.
Right.
So there's so many things going on in this game, but the worker placement is really neat, and it you have to do it in order to like win the game. If you didn't use your worker placement spots, I mean, that's not going to help you at all. You just have to figure out how wisely to use them in order to move up the other track and to get more cards and stuff. I just love this game, and this is another one that I'll play on Board Game Arena, where I usually don't like playing like even the medium weight games on there, just because I don't have like moving around on the computer and having to move I just want everything in front of me. I don't want to have to like guide around to look at things. This one is pretty good though. You can see almost everything in the one spot instead of having to move around and look for things. But that's my number 3, Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Yeah, that's a good one. My number 3 is Viticulture. It was published in 2013. It's created by Jamie Stegmaier and Alan Stone, and it's published by Stonemaier Games. This one, I played this one for the first time at Melcon last year, and then after I've played it, I was like, okay, I gotta buy my own copy. I didn't think it'd be a theme that would interest me all that much. It's about making wine, and you have a vineyard, and you're building, like you're adding building to your vineyard so you can do different things, and you have your workers, and you gotta get grapes, and then you gotta get those grapes kind of crushed down to create your juice, and then you're gonna ferment that to create your wine, and then you gotta let it age as well to depend on what level of wine you want to do, and then you have your white wine, your red wine, and your rosé, and it's honestly it is really interesting, and you have these contracts that will require a certain level of wine, so you kind of try to get the wine at that level so that you can fulfill the contract, and that's all neat. What's really interesting with this one is you have all these workers that you can assign, but you assign there's two portion. Like you got your summer portion, and you could put all your workers to do all the actions that's available in the summer actions, but there's winter coming, and there's all other sets of actions that you can do, and you need to have workers for that. So you're kind of placing this was like, okay, I want to do that, but I want to do all these things in the winter phase, so I should keep this worker, or do I do this action now? Like it's such interesting decisions that you got to do in between the summer action and the winter action and the workers and where you spend them. And it's so easy to kind of spend them all in the summer, or too much in the summer. It's like, darn it, I wanted to do this, but I didn't keep enough workers. I really enjoy that game, and that was such an interesting decision making and the balance that you got to match every time. So that's my number 3, Viticulture.
Good choice. I love that game. My number 2 is Everdell, made by James A. Wilson in 2018. And I know you might be thinking, is what? Number 2? I thought that was your number 1 game. Well, it is, but it's only half of the game is worker placement. So I didn't feel like it was the best worker placement on my list, because the most part of that game I enjoy is the card play, but the worker placement is awesome as well. So that's why it's my number 2. But the little spots you can go to are so cool. You have the main spots where you can collect resources, but then you also have the spots now, forest spots I think they call them, that are on the side that will change throughout like game to game, because you have all these different cards that you can put down, so it can be a completely different game. They can give you spots that'll literally just give you cards, or give you like stone and cards, which it's very hard to get stone because there's only one spot that'll give you one stone. So if you need 3 of them, you would have to use 3 workers there to get it, unless you can figure out another way to get it. But the spots are really cute as well that they go to. And with one of the expansions I have, which is Briarcrest, it's so cool because you can get these big animals that your little animal meeples will ride on. And they give you like a bigger player power, so they'll let you go to a spot and collect double, or they'll let you stay at a spot, and if someone comes there, then you get something. Like, they're all kind of neat things, but it's such a good game. And then also another one of the expansions, I think it's I'm forgetting the name, but it adds a little market at the top that you can go, and there's spots that you can get cards and resources, and then they will kind of move to the bottom, and then you can trade for that later in order to get points. So it's kind of works, at the beginning of the game when you need these like 3 of something, and then it'll give you a couple cards as well, which is awesome for one worker to get that. And then at the end, like I said, it'll give you a place to go if you have all these resources that you have nothing to do with. You've already built your city with your 15 cards, so what am I going to do? Other than getting your end game events, you can go there and get a bunch of points. And it's just such a fun game, so beautiful. I love the animal theme. if there's ever a little world, like I know people have asked in content creators, like, what world would you like to live in one of your games? This would be the game I would live in. I would live in the forest of Everdell. And I'm not sure what animal I'd be, but that would be where I'd like to, if you ever had a fantasy world to live in, this would be the one,
Nice.
Everdell. And it would be Andrew Bosley is the artist of this. He's just awesome. He's just coming out in so many different games now, but I just love his art. His little creatures are just so adorable, and the combos from card to card. It's also one of those games where some games you'll start out and you're like, I have nothing going on, no combinations whatsoever. And then I started, when I first played the game, I was like, yeah, I don't know, because like, is it the luck of the draw if you don't have any combos? But then you start to play and you're like, well, you gotta figure out a way to get more cards just to get through that deck to see more combos. So it's definitely like a hidden strategy. Like it's it's one of those games that some people play a few times and they're like, I don't really like this game, but you need to play it more to figure out the hidden strategies of it, and it's just an awesome game. I love it. Everdell, my number 2.
So this makes me really interested to find out which one is your number one.
Yeah.
If Everdell's number 2. Okay. So my number 2 is Champions of Midgard. It's published in 2015. It's by Ole Steines and it's created by Grey Fox Games. I really like this one. So it's Viking theme. You have this gorgeous board. You have all these different locations that you can go to. The chief of the village has passed away, and then you're all kind of competing to gain the most glory to become the next chieftain. And so you're doing different things that will gain you glory. So you're battling the trolls, you're battling these different monsters, or you're going to go get your across the sea to battle these bigger monsters. And there's all these different things you need to do. And what's really interesting is you're going to these different locations, you're sending your workers to do that. And some of it will be to recruit warriors to do all these battles. Now, your warriors are dice. And there's a white dice, a red dice, and a black dice. And they all have different weapons and different strength and abilities, and depending on what you're going to be attacking, some's like, well, you can't send black dice here, you can only send white and red, or and so on, right? And then when you're going and traveling across the sea, it's so interesting because you got to assign the dice that you're going to put in the boat. There's only so much room on the boat, but you also got to send food to make sure that these warriors survive to travel. And then you kind of go down to the monster you want to attack. Depending on how far you're going, you might need one food for 2 workers or one food per warriors. And then you flip a card, and then did you lose food? Did you lose warriors on the trip? Or did you come across a sea creature you have to battle first? Or maybe it was like smooth sailing, always nice, and you don't necessarily know what's coming. It's just so interesting. And then once you do get to the monster, you still have to roll the dice to see if you're going to be able to defeat the monster. And then if you are successful, some of your warriors are going to be killed because the monster attacks back. And then those go back into the dice pool then. And then you defeat the monsters, and then you collect a card, and that's worth so many victory points. But each card has a different color as well. And then those combination of colors is going to be worth so much points. And then you also get these kind of hidden agenda that you're trying to accomplish. So if you have the most red monsters, then you'll get bonus points for that. So you're trying to collect more of the red monsters or different things. It's just there's so much going on with it, but it's such a satisfying game to play. I just love it. So that's my number 2, Champions of Midgard.
Yeah, you taught us this at that Calgary tabletop. That was fun. I liked it. Awesome. All right. So my number 1 is a crossover. Have any guesses?
Oh. Viticulture.
Yep, by Jamie Stegmaier and Alan Stone, 2013. I love this game. I love the worker placement in it. It's so awesome. There's so many hard decisions because, in the base game you have the 2 seasons, but in the Essential Edition, the Tuscany version, you have 4 seasons. So it's even harder to figure out, okay, spring, summer, winter, fall, or fall, winter. What am I doing? What do I need to do? Do I need to harvest this round? Do I need to turn my grapes into wine, or do I want them to age first? Because I don't have that medium cellar. So if I put them into wine, they're not even going to age because they can't go further unless I get that cellar. So there's so many good decisions, and just getting the viticulture world has just added more to it. And I didn't mention this in there, but it's so neat because you actually start with 5 workers in the viticulture world, and you can't gain any. But you have your grande worker, which is the big guy that can go anywhere when there's people there. And then you have 2 summer workers. They have little yellow hats on them, and 2 winter workers with little blue hats. And you can train them to be like workers of any, you take their hat off and then they can go in any season. And there's just the 2 seasons in the viticulture world. But it's so neat. Like you, just like the main game, how you can fill your contracts, which is important because it gives you residual income, which will give you money each round. It's and it's hard to kind of get those going at the beginning because you can see like the first 5-6 rounds, you're barely moving on the point track, and you're thinking, wow, this is going to be like a 4-hour game. But then all of a sudden, like round 10 or something, it just ramps up and you've got 2 contracts and you're already moved up to 15, right? So it just, like the next few rounds, that's all it takes to get past that 25. And the card play in this is so cool too, because these cards are so different. Your your summer visitors or your winter visitors, they can give you such different things and can change up the game completely. Mm-hmm. It's such a neat thing. And then the Tuscany also adds the orange buildings, which is a complete different thing, where you can build these 2 buildings on your thing, and they'll give you like even a worker placement spot. Some of them will give you. Some of them will let you fill wine there, because that spot gets so full when everyone's got their wine and stuff, then you're fighting for that spot in order to fill wine and get that extra bonus point. But yeah, I just love this game. It's some people, it's funny, they'll compare it to Vinhos, which, I mean, it's the same theme, but I don't compare them at all. And they prefer that one. And I'm like, well, I like both of them. And they find this is, I don't know, too luck of the card draw, but I don't really find that. I just love it. Mm-hmm. It's such a awesome design. That's my number 1, viticulture.
Nice. My number 1 is not a game that is talked about very often. I think it was a Kickstarter, and I think there's limited copies out there. I bought this one secondhand on the theme alone because I thought my boys would love this, and I was completely right. So my number 1 is Pay Dirt. It's published in 2014. It's created by Tori Neiman, and it's published by Crash Games. My kids growing up loved watching Gold Rush Alaska. They watched it all the time. We had a gravel pile that we were going to spread across our driveway, and they were mining it. Like they would grab pie tins, and they would pan for gold in this big gravel pile that we had. We never spread it. We didn't have the heart to take it away from them. We just left it for them, and they would have friends come over and be like, "Oh, well, do you want to have so and so come over and come play in the gravel pile?" I was like, "No, they don't know how to pan for gold.
They don't want to share
it. Mess it up." It was hilarious. And this game, Pay Dirt, is basically Gold Rush Alaska, the board game.
Oh, really?
It follows that theme so perfectly. So you have all these workers. You can, on your turn, like it starts with a bidding round, and you can buy new equipment. So you can buy the digger to dig the dirt, or you can buy the wash plant to kind of wash the dirt and try to get the gold out, or like there's all these different equipment you can buy that's going to be a little bit more efficient than the one you start off with. You can bid on workers and get more workers to work your gold plan or your gold rush, and then so that's kind of how you start. And then you have your workers and you assign them. So to kind of have your digger kind of going to dig up the dirt, it'll require to move the dirt. Oh, well, and then actually you can buy land that you get the right to dig on. And then that's what's so exciting. So you buy the land, and it tells you the type of dirt that you have, whether it's promising dirt, whether it's kind of like okay, so dirt, or like really rich dirt. And then you have these tiles that you dig through, and you place them face down in those 3 spots on the card of the lease you've got on the land with the different dirt. And then on your turn, you'll place your workers, and everybody does this at the same time, so it's simultaneous play, so there's no downtime at all in this one. So you place your workers to do the different action, and then you place, so with your digging, because whatever, it takes 2 action to move the dirt through onto the wash plant, and then that takes so many action to move the dirt through, and then when it comes out, you flip the little dirt tile that you've moved through with your workers, you flip it over and you see how many gold nuggets are on there. And then you collect the actual physical gold nuggets, and there have these little gold nuggets that goes into your game. And you can, as one of the action, go to the market to sell some of your gold nuggets to get more money so that you can buy better equipment or hire more workers or all these different things. But the goal of the game is whoever has the most gold at the end is the winner. So you don't want to trade off too much of your gold, because those are your victory points. And then you have the workers that comes in, and each workers you'll get might do different things. So this one is great negotiator, so you can get things when you negotiate the bidding one, you get them for cheaper. Or this guy's such a hard worker, he's actually worth 2, so when you get this guy, you actually get 2 workers for him that you get to assign. This game is unreal. It's so good. It's so good. It's so thematic. We love it. We play this one often. It's so good.
Wow, that sounds really cool. And you don't hear much about this game.
I don't think there's a whole lot of copies out there. I think there's only a few that got done up. I don't think it ever hit retail, but it's
you got to bring this to Malcon.
So good. Yeah, I'll make sure it's. I think it might be packed already, so that
good.
If not, I'll make sure I pack it. Yeah, awesome. That was my number 1, Pay Dirt.
Perfect.
So now next week we are going to be doing our multi-use cards. Mm-hmm. So we've got that list going now. And I want to point out, me and Carla made a really amazing discovery last time we've recorded the game. We share the same birthday. It took us 21 episodes to discover this.
I know,
and it's funny because we keep talking about we keep talking about Malcon, because this is what I do for my birthday weekend. I always hold a game convention. So I didn't even realize your birthday was coming up, and then she thought it was on Malcon. I was like, no,
I was
it's
like,
a couple
which
days
day?
Before.
Which day of the weekend is it? And you're like, the 21st. No, which day of the weekend is your birthday? And you're like, no, the 21st. Yeah. I'm like, that's my birthday. So weird.
First day of summer.
Yeah.
So we're twins. We didn't even know.
Yeah. I know. Crazy.
See, this duo is meant to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have Malcon coming up, so we'll be doing recording on that as well. We figure we'll do the multi-use cards first, because we want to go through all of Malcon so we can talk about all the games we've played. Now, Malcon is blowing up. I have no idea how many people are coming, but we've been getting so many donations for door prizes from all bunch of local game stores, from Roxley Game, which is our kind of local game publisher. I've had a store in Ontario, the Gamers Tables, send donations over, and then some of my friends attending is like, hey, I have this game I haven't opened up, I'm donating it as a door prize. So I'm excited. I'm so excited for this. It's going to be great. Now, before we end this episode, Carla, where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram at Board Game Specialist, all one word, and I have a Facebook page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. What about you?
I am also on Instagram as BoardGame_Mama. My Facebook page is Board Game Mama and Friends Are Playing All the Games. I've changed the name because we've had people from more of than the Didsbury area, and I'm moving. Paperwork is finally kind of all put together. We're moving to Acme, which is interesting because, I mean, I've built my game community here in Didsbury, and it took a while, and I've got probably a good dozen people that I play with regularly in this area. And Didsbury has a population of 5,000 people. Acme has a population of 650.
What?
I don't know if I'm going to find any players there.
Yeah.
But this house is going to have more space for us. Everybody gets their own room. The basement is going to get transformed into the board game room. So I'm super excited. But yeah, we get possession the weekend after Malcon. So it's kind of like, what did I do to myself? So I'm also on YouTube. My channel is Board Game Mama as well. So I guess that's it for this episode. So thank you so much for listening. Bye, everybody.